Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're so happy to be praying with you this evening. I'm Rabbi Emily Hyatt. In case you're new here, this is Cantor Liz Sachs. And this Shabbat feels weirdly normal. I don't know. There's no holiday this week. Nothing super crazy happened in the news. This was like a long week. I don't know why. It felt like it went on forever. And Shabbat was slow in coming this week. And so with all of that, we welcome Shabbat. Join me in taking a big, deep breath and just letting go of the week that was, letting the Shabbat that will be in as we begin our service this evening with the lighting of our Shabbat candles. And as you see on your screen, a picture of our sanctuary, we remember that we are making our own sanctuaries and have been for a full year. I don't know if you guys are watching the news and the newspapers. There was a really, really amazing graphic on the front of the Denver Post today that had a lot of statistics and a lot of information about what the last year has been. But what it asked will we remember the lessons learned? What a good question. What a hard question. One of the things I've loved most was being able to turn my home into a place of holiness instead of just a place of living. That this office is also a sanctuary. And so, as we begin our prayers tonight, we turn our spaces, offices, laundry rooms, kitchens, bedrooms, garages, patios, wherever you are, into sanctuaries, and we read together. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. Together, may it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. You know, it's interesting. When we sing Lecha Dodi, we really are it's as if we are welcoming in literally Shabbat into our midst. That's what the words talk about, that we wait for Shabbat and then we welcome Shabbat in like someone that is beloved. And we say, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi makor habrach. Let us greet Shabbat with joy and song. And we just talked about and read in our opening reading about what do we want to let in to these sanctuaries that we have now in our homes. What do we let in? And that's not about people or cold air. It's about what values, what emotions, what feelings we want in our homes, and what values and feelings and emotions we want outside our homes. Our homes can be sanctuaries, can be places of peace and Shabbat. And so it's almost a physical change to let Shabbat in. It's not just a moment or a time. Letting Shabbat in, greeting Shabbat is it's a change. It's a change of who we are and how we see the world for just a little while. And so we greet Shabbat with the words of Lecha Dodi. We rise as we are able, physically or spiritually, for the Baruch Hu, as we call each other and God to prayer. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. As you taught Torah to those whose name I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Teach us how to live. you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai Echad. Baruch, Baruch, Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Le'olam v'ed, Le'olam v'ed. Shema, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Adonai You may be seated, and we continue as we chant Ve'ahavta together. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol vavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha ve'ayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
The Israelites walked into the Reed Sea 1 foot at a time. What were they thinking about as the water rose up their legs, chilling their hearts, advancing toward their open mouths? Together, we continue to walk here, now, 1 foot at a time, on our better days forward. Alone, I cannot reach the far shore without drowning. Somehow, I don't go under. The person to my right holds me up. Something I cannot see holds him up. Blessed is the source of help, so often unexpected. I step forward. The sea is vast. Blessed are you, gracious one, for your miracles that greet us every day. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Give us a place to rest. Adonai, our God, bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai hapores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Hashkiveinu Adonai,
And as we move toward our tefillah, we pray as if everything depended on God and act as if everything depended on you.
This week in our Torah, we continue our preparations to build a portable sanctuary. We have a little bit of a break, which Rabbi Hyatt will talk about later, but much of the Torah portion is still couched in the context of building a sanctuary. And so as we continue to walk through this moment in time, building our own sanctuaries, we prepare for tefillah with this melody, which reminds us how to build a sanctuary inside ourselves and amongst each other, even when we are not physically in the same place. God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you, Adonai. Sfatai tifta, ufi yagi, teilatecha, Adonai. Sfatai tifta, ufi yagi, teilatecha. God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וכל הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסירים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומך, מלך ממיר ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום הללוכה סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We take a moment now for the prayers that are in our hearts and minds that we have not yet said, and after our silent prayer, we will come back together.
God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Ve'asuli mikdash ve'shachanti betocha v'anachnu nevarech Yah. Hallelujah. Oseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. God, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you, with thanksgiving. I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
And with that, we arrive at our Torah service. And as always, let's learn a little something about our Torah portion before we dig into the opportunity to hear the Torah portion chanted for us this evening. So we are in Parashat Tisa. This is the third to last Parsha, Torah portion that happens in the book of Exodus, but next week is a double portion. So this is actually our second to last week in the book of Exodus. I know, it's the anticipation is just getting to all of us. Soon, Leviticus. So with that, what's going on? Well, super quick recap, in case you haven't tuned in a couple of weeks. The Israelites are wandering in the desert. They are getting the instructions to build the tabernacle. They have gotten the 10 commandments, and There's a lot of things that happen in Tisa. Cantor Sachs alluded to that a little bit earlier. They are working on building the tabernacle, and also kind of a big thing, a couple of big things happen. Namely, Moses spends a lot of time on Mount Sinai. It takes him a really long time to come back. The people get freaked out, even though they just got the 10 Commandments, which said, do not build you any idols. They build them some idols, and they make the golden calf. And God gets upset, but Moses gets really upset, and he breaks the tablets that he is walking down the mountain with, in my mind. That's the image that I have. And God forgives the people and Moses, and allows Moses to create new tablets, and the 10 Commandments are given again on the second tablets. And then we hear the 13 attributes of God. So it's a lot of things. The 13 attributes of God, from the high holidays, Adonai, Adonai, right? Those ones. So it's like there's a lot in this parsha. And of course, let's zoom in. When Moses breaks the tablets, God gives Moses the opportunity to get some new tablets. And it's toward the end of the parsha that it happens. And if you go back to when the first set of tablets were created, God made the tablets and God wrote on the tablets. Whether we believe that God makes and writes is outside of the scope of what we're talking about. That is a theological conversation other than what we're talking about right now. But let's just, for the sake of this story, God made the first set. Moses breaks them. And so in Exodus 34, verse 1, God says to Moses that God says to Moses, Pisal lecha, carve for yourself 2 new stone tablets that are just like the first ones that I made. And I will write on these tablets, this is God talking, the words which were on the first tablets which you broke. Carve for yourself 2 stone tablets that are just like the first ones, and I'll write on them for you. Pisal lecha. What's really interesting about this is that this is actually a phrase, a set of words that we just had the opportunity to hear a few weeks ago. If you think back to the 10 Commandments, there's actually a commandment that has these exact same words, just in a different order. The third commandment, if we're in Exodus chapter 20, okay, that's when the 10 Commandments are given, verse 3. And verse 3 says, you shall have no other gods before me. And then verse 4 says, you shall not make for yourself a carved image. Lo ta'aseh lecha pesel. You shall not make for yourself a carving. You shall not carve. And then 14 chapters later, God says, carve something for yourself. Just go and carve this thing. And so it's interesting, and our rabbis wonder, is it a coincidence that the same words, the same phrase is used, just flipped? When we're told not to, it says, lecha pesel, for yourself carve. And in the instructions to Moses to make tablets, it says, pesal lecha, carve for yourself. Interesting. Especially because the tablets are our holiest thing, right? When we talk about what are the things, the objects that to us contain holiness, we would say the 10 Commandments. We still depict images of those commandments. They're on the wall of our chapel, right? They live right above the ark in our finer chapel, in our cooling chapel. And idols, those graven images, the least holy thing we could possibly have. And so our sages say that what's important here is not necessarily that it's the same word, pesal or fesel. What's really important is the lecha. It's where you put yourself in this instruction. And so our rabbis teach us that these 2 phrases, these 2 verses are actually full of lessons about ourselves, about human nature. So let me give you some examples. One of our rabbis, the Or HaChaim, says that he asks a question. He says, how come you would need both sentences we go back to Exodus 20, right? In the 10 Commandments, why do you need two sentences there? It says, you shall have no other gods before me, and you shall not make for yourself graven images. And he asks, why do you need both of those things? Isn't the first one enough? And then he says, this is actually a lesson about human nature. That even if we know we can't have any other gods, that we might still feel like we need those images. That it would be so much easier to pray and to believe and to have faith and to worship God if we had like a little God statue that we could talk to, or that we could imagine, or that we could attribute some of the things that are happening in the world to. And so we need both of those, not because the laws are so different, but because the context of them addresses our human weakness, our human nature, that what we see, we understand. And so the words are so carefully crafted so as to speak to ourselves, to the self in that phrase. And another example of why those two sentences, those two verses are about human nature. Another one of our sages, Abarbanel, says, why does Moses have to carve the second set? The first set was carved by God. And so why wouldn't God just make a whole new set? Why do these have to have a different process? And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. But first up, Abarbanel says that lecha, that self, actually connotes, it's a connotation of isolation, of Moses' loneliness in the incident of the golden calf. He was up on the mountain working hard, and he came down, and they had made an idol. And he felt not just frustrated and angry, but he felt deeply alone. And so he alone carves the new set of tablets. It's the same lecha that we see in the beginning of the book of Genesis, when God says to Abraham, lech lecha, go away from everything you know, everything that's familiar, your family, your father's house, this place. Go to the land that I will show you. Lech lecha, go alone. Our leaders, our forefathers and mothers, they spend a lot of time in isolation. And that teaches us a lot about human nature, and certainly we can relate to that now. Rabbeinu Bahya tells us that this whole story, from the beginning of the receiving of the 10 Commandments and carrying them and breaking them and then creating new ones, is actually an allusion to another phrase that we know really well that comes from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, when we learn that there is a time and a season for everything, a time to gather stones and a time to cast away stones. And that whole section of Kohelet teaches us about how many different feelings and emotions and experiences we have as human beings, that we have deep anger and deep sadness and great joy and laughter, and that the breaking of the tablets and then Moses' creation of the new ones is a reminder that things will break and things will be created. There's a time for the gathering of the stones and a time for the breaking of the stones. So far, I think the rabbis are right. This teaches us an enormous amount about what it means to be a person. But most importantly, when we ask the question, why did Moses have to carve the second set of tablets? Why didn't God carve them? Pesal lecha. Why did Moses have to do it? Why is the lecha in there? Carve for yourself. Our sages teach us that Moses has to carve them because then he will have done the work. He will have put himself into them. Perhaps if he had carved the first ones, he wouldn't have broken them, even in his anger, because they weren't his. God could have done it the second time, but in order to teach us about the nature of human beings, we learn from this that we value differently that which we make ourselves. And our rabbis teach that perhaps this is actually the meaning of Psalm 126, which we often sing and will sing again tonight. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. It's a hard verse, one that often feels like it's not theologically in line with what I believe, that if I cry enough, if I suffer enough, that something good will happen to me because I will have earned it. But perhaps this has given me a whole new way to look at that verse. The idea that when we work hard enough, even when we cry tears of suffering for the work that we do, the joy that we feel, the success, the gratification that we feel on the other side is so much deeper. Moses sowed in tears. He was so angry and he broke the tablets, and then he sowed in tears. He worked so hard to build new tablets, to carve them. The struggle and the work mean something. And those tablets, those words, those commandments still today are a huge part of our tradition. Perhaps because he had to make the second set of tablets. Perhaps because he worked so hard for them. And this is why where you put yourself in the instruction matters. In the section from the Ten Commandments, it says, Lo ta'aseh lecha pesel. Do not carve it for yourself, but instead put yourself into carving it so that the work can make it even holier. And maybe there's one final lesson to learn here about human nature. Maybe it's the same word and the same phrase because they are exactly connected. We use the mistake to make up for the mistake. What do I mean? God told us, don't make graven images. Do not carve for yourself idols. And then what did we do? We carved idols. We made the golden calf. And so how do we come back from it? We use the mistake to learn from the mistake. We carve something, not an idol, but something holy. Moses represents us and our teshuvah, our coming back from that enormous mistake of making that golden calf. If God just carved new tablets, we wouldn't learn from how badly we messed up. And so we use this same word, the same phrase that we violated, right? That destroyed the first tablets. It was the graven image. It was the golden calf. It was the idol that was carved that caused the first tablets to be broken. And so we carve something holy in order to create what will bring us back from that moment. Which is exactly the point. It's about where you put yourself in the process. If it's too much about you and too much about selfishness and too much about what you need and what you feel and what will make you happy in any moment, regardless of consequences, then you are carving something for yourself. You're making something that is just for you. But if you put yourself into the carving, if you put yourself into the fixing, into the making it right, then we learn an enormous lesson about human nature. And that lesson is when we mess up, when we make mistakes, the way we come back from them matters. Apologizing, sure, we know that that's important and that's a huge part of our tradition. But our tradition teaches us that in order to truly apologize, we have to be faced with the same opportunity and do something different. So how perfect is it that in Moses is representing us in apologizing and repenting for the golden calf? It's the same phrase, the same situation, the opportunity to carve. But instead of carving for ourselves, for our own satisfaction, we put ourselves into the carving to create something that is holy for our whole community. And I want to tell you something, a conversation that I had. There's a lot of conversations that I've been a part of recently, people who are able to be vaccinated. Many of them so grateful, many of them quite guilty feeling. Perhaps because they're not quite qualified yet, and yet they were in a position to grab an extra. Perhaps because they are qualified, they are eligible for the vaccine, and they just know how many people aren't. Perhaps because they're vaccinated eligibly and their family isn't. Perhaps they're vaccinated and their neighbors aren't. There's an enormous amount of guilt around the vaccines. It's one of the things we're seeing around vaccines. And I had a conversation with someone recently who said, I was able to get the vaccine and I feel enormously guilty about it. And so, in order to make it right, I am using that vaccine to do something good in the world. They're volunteering at a vaccine site now that they are fully vaccinated. And I thought that that was such a beautiful way to handle that feeling. It's not a mistake. It's not a mess up. The more people that are vaccinated, the better. And yet, we're forced to come to terms with how we feel about that. And so we use the nature of what hurts us to fix it. And that is an epic lesson about human nature and how we as people navigate the world. Shabbat Shalom. And so with that, we turn now to our Torah reading, and I am honored to call a number of people to our screen to participate in this Torah reading. First of all, for our blessing, a big mazel tov to Jamie, Andrew, and Max Resnick in honor of Max becoming bar mitzvah tomorrow morning. They will do our Torah blessings this evening. Our Torah reader, the amazing Francie Myron, will be reading for us from the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verses 6 through 9, a translation by our Board of Trustees member, Rich Cohn. And so with that, we're so glad and grateful to each of you for participating, and I turn it over to the Resnicks for our blessing before the Torah reading.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Vaya'avor Adonai al panav. Vayikra Adonai, Adonai. El Rahum v'chanun. Erech apayim v'rav hesed ve'emet. Notzer hesed la'olafim. Notzei avon. Va'fesha v'hata'ah. Vanake lo yenake. Poked avon avot. Al banim v'al b'nei vanim. Al shilashim v'al ribayim. Vayamaher Moshe vayikod artsa vayishtahu. Vayomer imnat matzati hein be'enecha Adonai yelechna Adonai bikirbeinu ki am koshe oref hu v'salachta lavonenu ulhatatenu ulhaltanu.
The Eternal One passed before him and proclaimed, the Eternal, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1,000th generation, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, yet not remitting all punishment, but visiting the iniquity of parents upon children and children's children, upon the third and fourth generations. Moses hastened to bow low to the ground in homage and said, "If I have gained your favor, O my Lord, pray, let my Lord go in our midst, even though this is a stiff-necked people. Pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your own."
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Mazel tov to the Resnicks. Thank you so much to Francie and to Rich for reading Torah, for chanting Torah, and for translating for us this evening. We turn now, with all of the holiness in our midst, to the Mishaberach, and we just talked about these words. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. And we heard a couple of different ways that we might be able to think about it, but here's really actually why this prayer has come to mean so much to me in place of the Mishaberach. I think that when you have sown in tears, you have a different ability to appreciate the joy. That's what I think this is. I think that this is a prayer for the tears to give us the capacity for joy in a different way. And that as we pray for healing and as we make healing something that we hope for each of us, physical and emotional and mental, for those in our lives that are sick or in need, we hope not only that they heal, but that their ability to feel joy, to find joy, to reap joy is ever stronger because of the tears that they have sown. And so we join together in these words, and in the middle, as usual, we will say a list of names of all those who are in need of healing and invite you to share your names as well.
Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy.
Today we are praying for Zachary Hoffman, David Karner, David Lustig, Jeff Cohn, David Goldenberg, Stuart Myers, Catherine Pluss, Jean Silber, Scott Englander, Stacy Hoffman, Kristen Myers, Corey Franklin, Sandy Shore, Brian John Miller, Jerry Waknov, Shanti Hazan, Jennifer Brynan, Lynn Pollitt, Lynn McLaughlin Cromar, Howard Rosenberg, Leonard Streer, Deborah Olenikoff, Alex Busnovetsky, Michael Altenberg, Isabel Make, Sharon Crane, and Ernie Stone. And with that, I ask you to add in any names in your minds or your hearts, people that you are thinking of, that we can pray together with you for their healing. You can say them out loud. You can type them in on Facebook. You can just hold them in your heart as we hold them with you. And as we approach this year of pandemic, we certainly add all of those who have been impacted, who have been ill, who have been affected, who are still dealing with the the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Baruch atah Adonai makor harefuah. Blessed are you, Adonai, the source of all healing.
It's the song of the dreamer from a dark place that grows like a flower in the desert, the oasis of our souls. Come back where we belong. You hear our longing cries, our mouths, our lips are filled with song. You can see our tear-filled eyes. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy, will reap in joy. And with that healing and that prayer in our hearts, we rise as we are able, as we turn to the conclusion of our service and chant together the words of the Aleinu. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Today, we are remembering those that we have lost in the last week: Carol Bartlett, Arthur Moss, and Stephen Newman. We add to that list those that we have lost in the last 30 days: Robert Bendelin, Florence Blogger, Dr. Ned Shalit, Joan Cohen, Steve Lancer, Dr. Larry Robbins, Bill Spitz, and Robert Tucker. And we add to that list those for whom this Shabbat marks a yortzeit, or the anniversary of their death in a year that has passed: Fred Bauer, Alan S. Beinhorn, Bell L. Beinhorn, Agnes Berenbaum, Ray S. Berry, Leopold Bryn, Sam Coleman, Alfred Eddie Custer, Louis Dinner, Stanley I. Dock, Olga G. Dreyfus, Bernard Burt Erdman, Stacy Malman Feldman, Gladys L. Fishman Tennyson, Jerry Fishman, Cindy Fowler, Mary Gass, Mary K. Gass, Meyer Goldblatt, Stephen S. Golden, Herman Goldsmith, Cindy Beth Grimes, Gilbert Hirsch, Amanda Kahn, Norman Carden, Cy Z. Karsh, Rada Bronstein Kewin, Zoe Tova Kislowitz, David H. Crone, Alan D. Laff, Goldine E. Lackner, William S. Landers, Elaine S. Levin, J. Robert Levy, Lesser Levy, Jules Milstein, Max Pedzensky, Samuel Pells, Leora Parrish, Norton Polivnik, Bessie G. Radetsky, Sarah Recknitz, Evelyn Rifkin, Lieutenant Colonel Harry E. Rosen, Jacob Rubinstein, Erwin L. Sandler, Ida Schwader, Sylvia Steller Siegel, Rosa Silversmith, Walter Simon, Sam Slovin, Hattie A. Spitzer, Irene Strackman, Dr. Luis Teichert, Gregory Allen Tepper, Pearl B. Weiner, Dr. Norman Weiner, Abe Weinstock. And we add 10 more names. 10 of those from the city of Kolín in the former Czechoslovakia who perished in the Holocaust, for whom our Kolín Chapel is dedicated. Zusa Klimplova, Dr. Hanus Klinger, Otto Kodacek, Arik Kohn, Elena Kohn, Otto Kohn, Irma Konova, Helena Konova, Clara Konova, and Jindrik Kornfeld. For every single one of those people, and for every other name that you are thinking of, all of those memories that are not on our list but that you are holding, type them in to Facebook, say them out loud, hold them in your heart so that we can remember each of them with you. I invite you, if you are in a period of mourning, to rise physically or spiritually as you can. And now each of us, we rise physically or spiritually as we are able in our own homes, and we recite the words of the mourner's Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ule'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen.
Oh, say shalom, shalom in Roma. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu.
And with that, a few announcements before we conclude our services this evening. Good news, Shabbat continues tomorrow. Do you think I'll ever get tired of making that joke? Probably not. At 9 a.m., Young Family Shabbat, right here on this channel and on this part of the website and Facebook with me and Neil. We're very excited. 10 o'clock a.m. Torah study with Steve Brodsky. You can watch on Facebook or the website or Zoom if you have registered for the link. 11 o'clock, the community service with Steve and myself. And then at 7 o'clock, Havdalah with Rabbi Black. All of those things are happening on the main page, main Facebook page that we have, or channel 1 of the website. Also tomorrow on channel 2 and on our B'nai Mitzvah Facebook page, we will be celebrating Max Resnick becoming bar mitzvah, and he will be doing that with Cantor Sachs and Rabbi Black. So don't miss it. A couple of other quick things. Don't forget that on Thursdays at noon, one of the clergy is in a Zoom room waiting for you if you need a spiritual check-in. You can always register for them right up until the moment they start on the Wufu link that's in the e-notes. But if you just need a little bit of space and a little bit of togetherness with some people, that is happening every single week. Coming up this week. Our annual meeting is on Thursday, the 11th, 6 o'clock p.m. Zoom for our members only. And then our Board of Trustees new members installation, also 6 p.m. on Friday night, the 12th. And that will be Shabbat services streamed to all Facebook website, all of the things that usually happen. A quick update in case you were trying to register for our Board of Trustees sponsored wine tasting. The link is not working, but it will be working soon, I believe. Yes, so keep trying if you want to drink wine with the board. Who doesn't? Rabbi Foster is doing the second 2 sessions of his clergy learning series. The first one was so fascinating and interesting. It will be the 17th and the 24th. So we're skipping next Wednesday, and then the following 2 Wednesdays at noon, Rabbi Foster is teaching. You guys, I don't know if you are ready for this, but Passover is happening at the end of this month. Somebody should give Cantor Sack some oxygen. But when Purim ends, we know that Pesach is coming, so don't forget to buy some matzah and get geared up for our Seder, which will be on the 27th. We will be joining right back here. That was the first crazy thing we did on Zoom, and we're gonna do it again. But
we're all so much better at it.
We're
better at watching it. We're better at managing it. It's gonna feel like a pleasure.
It was very scary last year. This year we got this. It's going to be delightful. So with that, it is a pleasure to, what are we going to do? Make Kiddush?
We are going to make Kiddush. Yes. Actually, this is so appropriate for everything that Rabbi Hyatt just said, because this involves wine. So if you want to stock up on some wine before Pesach, sign up for the board wine tasting. And Pesach is coming, on which we drink 4 cups of wine. So start building that tolerance right now with Kiddush. Here we go. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshenu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron le'maseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila v'mikra'e kodesh, zecher tziyad mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava v'ratzon, hinchaltanu, baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat. Amen. And we bless our challah, counting down the days till we cannot do that anymore for 8 days, so enjoy it now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And we conclude our service this morning with words of peace, with words of hope, that the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, for all of Israel, for the entire world. And together we say, Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru. Amen.
Yehi ratzon milfanecha, may it be your will, God, that as we walk into this Shabbat and as we continue to march our way toward spring, which is coming, that we do so with full acknowledgement of our honest selves as human beings, with awareness of our faults and our strengths, and that we find ways to make the best of each of the moments that are given to us, whatever they are. And we ask you, God, Tatzidenu l'shalom, help our steps be steps of peace. Tadrichenu l'shalom, guide us on paths of peace. Amen. Shabbat shalom. We'll see you in the morning.